whenever you're ready. All right. We are live, and I would like to call our March 23rd, 2026 policy meeting to order. At this time, I will ask for public comment if there is any.
I have a public comment.
Would you like to come?
Yeah.
Over here?
I can just stand. I have a teacher voice. Do I have to be in front of the
You
camera?
wanna
You're
be
good.
on
It will.
Good. Great.
Yeah, if you want your picture on the screen.
You're
you can
not
set
on the
this way.
screen right now.
So there's a
So you can come stand next to me if you'd like.
I'm just, okay. Hi guys, I'm Meredith Westfall. I actually have a comment I'd like to submit on agenda 2. I think the policy is GEBA, or the staff dress code. Currently I'm a 7th grade science teacher at East Edisto, and I also serve on our recruitment and retention task force. I say that not because I'm here to represent the task force as a whole, but just to say that I've been actively a part of the discussions about updating this dress code. I really want to thank the district office and all of the school board members for helping out and being so collaborative with all of our groups in DD2. You guys actively listen to our feedback. And I'm really hoping that the suggestion that we came up with of adding professional jeans to our staff dress code is something that can move forward. Teaching is not a sedentary job. We've heard from elementary school teachers who are on the floor with their students, special education teachers who are trying to support their high need students, and just classroom teachers who want to do hands-on activities with their kids in the classroom. Our work requires constant and flexible movement. This would be a simple, no cost policy update that would make our staff feel heard, respected, and supported. An added incentive for those teachers who may have taken a pay cut because of their loyalty to our district. We teach our students already to dress for success, but success in the classroom looks a little bit more with practicality. Allowing some more flexibility with professional jeans into our staff dress code would enhance our teacher effectiveness, it would boost morale, and it would ultimately lead to higher student achievement outcomes, which is always the goal. So thank you guys. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Ms. Westfall? I almost messed that up. All right, nobody else. So moving forward, I will turn it over to Ms. Graham for getting us started on our policies.
Great, thank you. We are actually going to start with policy GBEBA that Ms. Westfall just addressed. And you all can see here that this policy was recently updated in 2022. So the only proposed change is in regard to jeans. And the recommendation would be to strike the reference to jeans in the first bullet point, which permits jeans only at the discretion of the principal or on special occasions, which would make jeans appropriate attire so long as it complies with other bullet points within the dress code for teachers and staff members.
Awesome. Any questions?
So just to confirm, this makes jeans professional, acceptable.
Yes, so long as they comply with the other bullet points in the dress code, in terms of not being too tight, frayed, slits, things of that nature.
Are we allowed to comment at this time? No.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Okay, definitely, y'all know I'm all about teachers, educators, whatever their positions are. Unfortunately, we do have some that will not follow the policy, and they will not dress professionally as they should. Now, I may get some pushback from that, but I've been in the classroom, I've been outside the classroom, I've been visiting schools, and sometimes, unfortunately, what one or two may do that may cause us to have to go back and revisit it again and to go outside the parameters that have been set. So I would encourage fellow educators just to remind one another, we don't want to mess this up. I'm all about you wearing jeans. I just don't want you to wear inappropriate jeans. And there are times when I've seen them inappropriate, not only jeans, but clothing. And so We do want our children to understand within a professional setting, there's a certain way they need to dress. And we, as the adults, are the role models. So I'm all with you. I would have loved it, but we'll pay to wear jeans, but we would love if it's free. So I'm with that. I'm just saying to my fellow colleagues, please don't mess it up for the remainder of the folks that's willing to follow the policy. Thank you.
And I just wanted to tell Chad, thank you for Mr. Doherty, for meeting with the teacher recruitment and retention task force, meeting with your principals. I know there was a lot of differing opinions, but ultimately we're looking at this as a free way to boost morale and really give the teachers this autonomy. I know obviously we have outlines with how we should structure that, what it should look like, what's appropriate, and that goes for skirts, shirts, all types of attire. You can have a skirt that's too short. Oh my goodness. And different things. So I think it's important with all things, to Ms. Powell's point, that we're maintaining a certain standard. But I do appreciate, I know sometimes we utilize this as an incentive. So I look forward to maybe figuring out what other incentives we can offer our teachers as rewards. But I do think this is a step in the right direction to giving them that autonomy. And I appreciate you listening to the task force and having those conversations with our principals and all the work you and your staff put in on that as well. So.
Like, I think the big thing is, we just talked to our principals and, no Saturday jeans, which is no holes. And again, I think that the policy addresses that. And I think we talked about, this day and age, I can wear a suit jacket. Mr. Lee, I've seen him several times, looks very professional, has a suit jacket on, could wear a tie with jeans and nice shoes. And so I think, those are the things that we've talked with our principals about, that we would like to continue professional, but they can still wear jeans. And so, again, it goes with not just jeans, but it goes with everything.
Yes.
I think you mentioned that, Ms. Powell. So I think that's the biggest thing. And so jeans will now be included with that. So no, we appreciate the feedback we got from principals and also retention task force and the board. And so, as soon as if this is approved by the board, then we will make sure we send this out to our principals.
I think it's an easy one in my opinion, and I, without any objection, would like to pass it out of committee.
Next is policy GCK, professional staff assignments. And this has been, this policy was last updated in 2000. And so we are certainly taking a look at that. In addition, it is being updated in accordance with the Educator Assistance Act. So you will see there are a good number of changes here in the structure of the policy. However, it is really containing most of the same content. One change is in the date of notification of assignment, which is to align with the Educator Assistance Act. I do just want to clarify that there was a typo there in that paragraph just under the bullet points where it says 14 days prior to date that students, it should go on to say return to school. So I apologize for that. I will add that in there, but 14 days prior to the first date that students return to school.
I was wondering what that was saying.
Yes, I apologize.
You're fine. And you're saying the 14 days is in alignment with the education? Why can I not talk? The Educator's Assistance Act. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so we're reducing that. All right.
And
Are we
then-
allowed to do anything outside of that? Or is that law?
Well, the 14 days would be the minimum, so we could do more. I would defer to Mr. Matthews is back there if he wants to address assignments, timeline for assignments. The Educator Assistance Act
Yes,
I
has
don't
the 14 days prior to the start of the school year.
I don't want to be a stickler,
yeah,
but I do know that's a lot for our teachers to hear 14 days before they're starting school is what it is. That they might have a new assignment. I know 30 days was also kind of a hard point for them too. So I worry about reducing even more to the 14.
sure. Yeah, well, we certainly try very hard, not to have to move a teacher at all. That's something we don't, I think this past year we had to do it one time. And it was actually right at the beginning of the school year when we did it, but we worked very hard. It's not something that we anticipate having to do very much of it all. We try very hard not to do it, but certainly we'll definitely stay within those those guidelines if we have to do it and make sure we follow those guidelines. The 14 days, but we have a plan where we're going to, once contracts are signed and once we get through allocations and, we're in that process right now. We have high schools to go this week. Our goal is to, as much as possible, solidify everything. And then we're going to work with the principals. Because the problem is not just location, it's also what they're going to be teaching, and that's what we're trying to work with principals to make sure they know, what their assignments are going to be, because we do give principals some autonomy based on allocations and based on student enrollments within their buildings. Like someone may be thinking they're going to be a third grade teacher, but then when, they may have to make a change in this, not in the location, but in the assignment of that teacher. But we're going to work with principals and we're going to try to get all that solidified well in advance so that we're not even messing around with that 14-day, because you're right, we don't want teachers, because teachers are dedicated teachers. They they're in their classrooms, getting ready. We're working real hard on that. It's hard to make a 100% guarantee, but we'll make sure we follow what the Education Act says.
Could there be a happy medium or something that would state, and this is just me thinking out loud, that would state something like unless necessary or like due to enrollment changes or something like that? Like,
Well, we have, most of it's enrollment changes. Last year, the one we had last year, we had to move one from, I believe Oak Brook to Sires.
I
And
understand.
And
that
again,
you
but it was enrollment
Yeah.
and, we met with them. I actually went over, Tracy Taylor was excellent at working with, and then Jeff, we were able to move everything for her that same day.
Right.
So we really work with that person. We really try not to do it, but at this point in time, we didn't have another teacher to find. And so the numbers warranted to go over to that building at that time.
Could
And
you
so.
say 30 days unless, determined necessary by the superintendent up to 14 days prior? I don't.
There is already a clause
Okay.
that allows for the reassignment at any point in the
Yeah.
school
The
year.
problem is with that, a lot of people don't
Under certain
register their
conditions.
children.
I know.
Until
That's
late.
That's what I'm
And we
talking
base
about.
all of our enrollments off of when people sign up. We think this is when they're gonna go,
Yeah.
but then all of a sudden we get more that come in.
They
and
come
they-
the first day, second day.
Right, and
third
then all of a sudden they're like, oh, because we were really panicking in the first 2 or 3 days because Dr. Wilson had to remind me, Chad, they don't all register until the last 3 or 4 days, prior and after we get into school. They forget to register. And so what happens is now we're panicked. We don't have enough teachers, or we have some that need to be put over here. So that's the issue that we run into.
So would it be possible to say anything about it like being necessary or anything like that? Like we'll try not to, but if it's deemed necessary, we will within the 14 days.
So I think that's
Something that's
included
covered?
in the
Okay. Yeah.
last paragraph there before transfers. If reassignment is necessary, they'll
Yeah.
be notified at least 5 days.
Okay.
And then there's a listing at the top about
So you think
relocation
that'd be
due to
redundant?
instruction requirements, fluctuating enrollments.
And the bad thing about this, and we go by seniority too, and Scott has to pull and does the point system and figure out who that person's going to be. And usually unfortunately, it's a newer teacher.
Right.
But again, we really tried, we made sure that we had everything delivered for them, moved everything for them so they didn't feel like they're on an island by themselves. And so the person we moved was very grateful that we were able to come and help. And like I said, Tracy was great with personnel. I met with her and, explained whatever we could do. I think we even took donuts or some things over for her classroom just to say, we're sorry, thank you. And so I know Tracy did a great job with that. And so nobody wants to do it. But again, like I said, it all depends on the number of students you have in seats and when people sign up. And we try to be as proactive as we can.
I understand. There's a lot of factors.
Yeah, we hate to move anybody. That's the last thing we want to do when we meet. We're like, do we have to? But we only
Right.
have 10 in this classroom and I got 30 over here. We're going,
And I've
okay.
seen that where,
Yeah.
next thing you know, first
Yeah.
day of school, you have a
And I-
line of kids that
Yeah.
weren't registered and they're just now students.
And I
So
think
they
we've
get-
only, correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, I can only remember us doing this. Last year was the first time we've done it in a long time.
They had to move somebody last minute.
We've had to do it occasionally, but it's never been more than just a couple of people, but we've had to do it. before.
Yeah.
It's usually, and it used to be the 10th day. It used to be that we would review, and that 10th day is when we would decide, which is even harder because the teacher's already been in the school for 10 days. We try now to make look at those numbers.
The first day of school.
Yeah.
Before the first day of school.
They're looking at numbers all the time.
Right, yeah.
Like, and we're communicating with personnel so that we can, because we want to try to avoid that. And we do want to make sure that we, make sure people, because that is important for people to know where they're going to be and not really have to try and move someone if at all possible.
But I think I also, during the time that I was in the classroom and during that period, we understood that ultimately it's about what the needs of the school happen to be. And sometimes you may not want to move, but if that's what has to happen in order for it to work, then that's part of why we are hired, for that flexibility. Not, if they know you're not a math teacher, they're not going to put you in a math class or something like that. But certain things, by then, I think for the most part, principals know who their teachers are in that building, or whoever is working, janitor or whomever. And they, I believe, do the best in order to make sure they put the right person in the right place to the best of their abilities. So during my time, I don't hear a lot about, and even in talking with them, I don't hear a lot about principals acting in a certain kind of way. And if they did, they could always come and talk to admin here at the district office. But for the most part, I believe educators know that there's that level of flexibility that goes with the job.
Well, I think the district has been very clear. We recognize our teacher recruitment, retention challenges and whatnot. This isn't something we want to do arbitrarily and capriciously. And to that end, I would suggest that paragraph that starts all personnel are employed by the district be the first paragraph in that section, and everything flow from that. But we also talk about, there is an order of hierarchy of things that have to be followed, but it also says we're going to do everything we can to try and accommodate. The danger is trying to codify everything so tight in policy where you handcuff yourself and you're not able to do what we have to do. And that is, look, if we knew what the numbers were going to be 14 days before school started, everybody could know that's where you're going to be, that'd be great. Unfortunately, that's not reality. And so, again, I would recommend we move that all personnel paragraph up to the front of that section, followed by the superintendent will annually determine staff to be assigned.
I have no problem with switching the order if you think it makes sense.
So you want the all personnel paragraph to be first and then the superintendent to be second and then begin the remainder of the policy? Okay, perfect. I can do that. And then I also just want to point out the transfer section in yellow, that is part of the model policy. However, the district currently maintains its own transfer policy, GCKAA and GCKAAR. And so while those also have not been updated since 2000, we will put them on the list to update, but I think that it is appropriate to remove this section and then focus on the policy that specifically addresses that.
Absolutely. Okay, those are good. Thank you.
Right? And that is good to move forward?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Excellent. Next on the list is GCQC/GCQD. Resignation of instructional staff and administrative staff. Now I can't talk either.
I know, it's going on. Started with you.
This is also to be updated in accordance with the Educator Assistance Act. Again, this policy was just recently updated in 2024. However, the Educator Assistance Act specifically provides some guidelines around breach of contract and those educators who try to leave during the school year after they've signed their contract. So we just wanted to update this in accordance with that.
Does anyone have any questions on this policy? No, I'm good with the recommended changes. If we want to move forward, you can test them.
Excellent. Next is GCR, non-school employment of professional staff. Again, this policy has not been updated since 2000, so we are just bringing it up to date, specifically to address those staff members who have other jobs outside of the school, and how that could conflict with their school employment. So just addressing those. I don't think that there are any what I would consider significant changes to it, but just
Thought that line that we had was funny. Compromise or embarrass the school system.
I
was
did.
like, what constitutes embarrassing the school system? Yeah.
Oh, don't tee it up there. I do know there's nothing in the policy that says that they're compelled to inform or notify the district if they have outside employment.
That is correct.
And just curious whether you'd be open to actually adding a statement like that in our policy.
I just worry, like, what if they have a part-time job as a bartender in the evening? Do we really, is that, or I don't know, or something? Like, I think that's a little bit invasive, in my opinion. I don't know. Unless they're caught doing work during work, I think you address that, but I'm open to other people's
If our bartending
thoughts.
during work, we got some real problems.
Yes, obviously for that one.
I just know in the commercial sector anyway,
Yeah.
my employment contract with my employer says that I am prohibited unless notifying them and we determine whether or not there's a conflict. So just throwing that out there.
That's it, but what would constitute a conflict?
I mean, there are employees within the district. I mean, we're gonna look at the tutoring policy in just a second, but there are employees within the district who do have other jobs that are relevant to education. And so I would say that there is, I mean, the risk for conflict is minimal, but I suppose that conceivably there is a risk out there. I think that, as you said, the difficult part with requiring everyone to report is that defining what is employment outside, right? If you babysit, do you have to report that? If you got paid to babysit one Friday evening, if you, do sort of multi-level marketing on the side, is that employment? So I think that those issues do get difficult. I do agree that there is some potential for a
Could you
conflict to
say-
exist. I don't.
Could you just say that then? Could you say if,
It says if there is a conflict, that's in
yeah,
there.
so,
Conflict, if it conflicts with staff members' assigned duties in any way.
well,
Is that what you were?
in my mind, when I read that, I was thinking more like their duties during the course of the day. Like, are they working while they should be doing something else? Or are you?
Well, there are other conflicts.
'Cause I'm saying, yeah, a conflict, what I'm thinking of what he's saying is more of like a conflict of interest. type of
Right.
thing.
I do think that there is some potential for conflict of interest if you had a business,
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
perhaps as a parent consult, as a special education advocate, if you, and you were taking cases against the district or something like that, that could be a conflict of interest. I do think the risk of that is relatively low. I don't know that we've had that issue, but,
Could you have like a
It's
line, like if
conceivable.
there's like a question, whether there's a conflict of interest, notify the district of the alternative employment or something along those lines? Like a self-reporting disclaimer, like.
Sure. I mean, I do think, thank you, Dr. Wilson,
of
that
like-
to that point, I mean, if a staff member is unsure whether their additional employment will interfere with the assigned duties, they may
Yeah.
request a conference. I mean, perhaps we can change that to
They
they
shall,
must request
or-
a
yeah,
conference, or
must.
they must inform their.
Then if you're a pole
They're gonna
dancer
say, I'm
at
not
night,
unsure.
then I think that's a conflict of interest as to what we're trying to convey to our public as to who we are hiring. So I think you need to make sure that you run that by
Being a parent reporting that.
somebody in charge.
Well, I'll give you another examples, with special education, there's we have some administrators, assistant principals that are trying to make extra dollars and be parent advocates. And so it's hard to be an advocate of a parent of the district that you work for.
Yeah.
And so that could be considered a conflict of interest. And so there are some things that are out there like that where, okay, you do work for the district, but now so those are things that we have kind of had to go through and address those once they come out, and then the people understand it is kind of a conflict of interest.
So would they try to advocate for the parents
parent.
within the same district where they work?
Yes,
Oh,
they
no.
were- yes. So
We should
So
we
change-
add a line
I think we
that
should
says
change that to must. If you change may to must, that covers it. It's saying if you think there's a conflict, they must request a conference with the superintendent or their designee.
I think we should change that first line then to say if a staff member identifies a potential conflict.
Yes.
They must hold the conference. Is that?
Identifies or is unsure, because maybe they're unsure, and I'd rather err on the side of the caution and not be like, I'm unsure, but I haven't identified it, so,
Okay.
you know.
All right, so we'll make those changes there and then we'll change it to must. Request
So,
a
yeah,
conference with
so
the
it'll be-
superintendent or his or her
If a
designee.
staff member is unsure or identifies blah, 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 a conflict, they must request a conference with superintendent or designee. Okay. Yes.
With those changes,
Yes.
are we good to move that forward? Great. But next is policy sorry, I think I'm missing one here. Next is policy GCRD, which is tutoring for pay. Sorry, I didn't print this one out for some reason. Thank you. Missed this in my printing. This one also had not been updated since 2000. And it's just containing minor updates to clarify parent, legal guardian, which we are doing across our policy, changing children to students, and then one additional statement regarding use of district websites and materials during their tutoring.
I have no issues with this. Anybody else? You can go ahead and pass that.
Okay, excellent. Next up is policy GD, support and classified staff. This policy also had not been updated since 2000. There are substantial contextual changes here, but I think the content is really the same, which is just identifying who classifies as classified staff within the district. One recommendation that I did have here is to the model policy includes food service personnel. I don't know whether we want to leave that. We do have some staff that we would consider to be food service
So
personnel,
that
but
are
in
our
general, they are
district.
not our staff, other than 2 to 3 individuals, I think.
So we do have some that are our staff. Okay, so yeah, and I would leave it then for that reason.
We can leave that.
Yes.
Any other questions or concerns with that one?
We are good.
Move that one forward. Next up is IHBCD, Alternative Educational Program. This policy we considered previously at a policy meeting, and then the board voted to return it to the policy committee for further review. I believe after discussions, the recommendation for the language in the policy is going to remain the same, with some directives to the principals regarding handling of students. So.
And an update to the student handbook with the basic.
Just stating that there will be an intake meeting?
Yeah.
Yes, we can do that.
Administrative guidelines with
Just wanna make sure.
ministers, yep.
So with that, is this policy ready to move forward?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, next is IHBGR, homeschooling. Again, the board considered this at the last policy committee meeting, and it was brought to light that there was some confusion within the policy about which sections apply to those students homeschooling under option 1 versus option 2 and 3. So there are some additional recommendations here just to make that more clear, which is to say that it begins with a sentence that this information applies only to option 1 unless otherwise noted. And then those recommendations per the model policy are made. And then you will see that later on in the policy, it talks about the following information is applicable to all homeschool students, including those homeschooling under options 1, 2, or 3.
If the, sorry, I'm reading this. For like statewide testing, would like an option 3 student enrolling back into the district for, they're responsible for paying it, test administrator for the test. Blah, blah, blah. Would any like MAP testing like that they did formally through like an organization count as those sort of things? So like, could they waive the cost if they offer, like if they did Iowa assessments or state testing?
Are you
Am I reading
referring
that
to
wrong?
at the bottom of page 2 where it says statewide
Huh,
testing? So
Yes.
those are applicable to option 1
Only,
students.
okay.
They are required to participate in the statewide
Okay, I was
testing.
reading it wrong. Then.
offered by the
You're fine.
district, yes. And I do just want to provide one other change that was recommended under testing on page, the next to last page. There was an addition or clarification there of some testing, and I wrongfully called it the PACT, and it should be the pre-ACT. So I just want to clarify
What
that.
is that?
It is on the next to last page under the heading testing.
Oh, yeah, no worries. I still call it the PACT.
I thought that that was what it was called, but my curriculum friends have clarified that the PAC is a different kind of test. And so it is the pre-ACT.
So, well, I'm good with those. Thank you for making those changes. Anyone else have questions?
And then the last policy on the agenda for today is BID, Board Member Compensation and Expenses. There are no recommendations from the district related to this policy. However, it is being brought forth for consideration by the board.
I apologize. Which one was that?
BID, Board Member Compensation and Expenses.
I will turn that over to Ms. Powell. This was brought to the board or the committee at your request. So anything you want to share regarding changes, what your recommended changes are? Do you have an idea of what you think it should be, what the increase should be?
I don't have a particular amount in mind. I think part of it is just the fact that a couple of years ago, when we were talking about not having funds for certain things, town council doubled their pay, county council doubled their pay, and technically, we're all doing the same thing. We're here to service our community. And I wouldn't want a board member or someone not to be seated on the board because they're being compensated less than others that are doing the same type of jobs. Technically, when you look at the fact that it's been more than 15 years since the board has received an increase in pay, I don't even know how to put that in wording. To me, that's crazy. When I ran for office, I wasn't even thinking money. I didn't even know that there was a certain amount of money that you were being paid. And I understood that there were some little problems that happened with that. But at the same time, I was talking to someone from Greenville. And so what they have done now is whenever there's an increase for others, they automatically get an increase as well. And so I just want those that will be serving on the board to know that they will be compensated, not that they went in with any idea of looking for money. I can work 4 days, and never work the rest of the month and get more than I'm getting now as a board member. And so, and that's not even top of the line pay. That's right here in this district. So I'm just saying, if you really value what people do, then you need to be willing to compensate them. I don't plan to be on the board the rest of my life, but I'm also looking forward to those that will become board members. I want them to understand, just like classroom teachers, nobody ever questioned whether or not, oh, well, I don't know if we can afford to pay the doctor or the lawyer or anybody else, whatever their profession may be. But when it comes to education, they just seem so quick to be able to say, well, we just can't afford that. And that's not right. So as I said before, I'm going to serve and do what I intend to do. But at the same time, I'm looking forward to those people that I would recommend. I would love for you to serve on the board because I believe that they would do a great job on the board. But at the same time, depends on how much time they're investing. Yeah, I think they ought to be paid. Just the fact that they're serving, I think they need to be paid more. And that's why I advocate for teachers get their increase, and they should.
Would you be opposed to it not going into effect until after the next election?
I would be against that.
For that or against
I
that?
would be against that.
So you think it should go in effect immediately when passed?
With the next school year, 26, 27.
Well,
I mean, the hard part was even if we held off and didn't put it into effect until the next election, you'd still have people, you have people who aren't running.
well, yeah,
So you'd still have people who would be.
voting
essentially
on it, that,
So I
do we,
don't-
how many seats do we have up?
3, so you still have 4 people, a majority of the people. who
I'd
would
say
have
they'd
to-
have to, everybody else would have to recuse themselves, in my opinion. I mean, I would, or would vote against.
Well,
it.
if
There
everyone
wouldn't be
did,
enough to vote.
there wouldn't be
the
enough
only
votes.
3 people are up for election.
Correct. Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't be able to include that.
No.
Well, what are your thoughts, Ms. Wimberly? Dr. Wimberly?
I mean, I do understand your point about wanting good people to want to run for school board. I think that's the case for any elected position across local position, state and country. We want the most, the best people. I think it's hard because and I think about why I ran, I'm like you, it had nothing to do with a financial incentive. So I wonder, would adding the small amount that we would be able to possibly even add if we were going to, would it really make a difference for people? It would be such a minimal amount. And then I guess the other piece of it is, I mean, right now, we don't even know if we're gonna be able to give our teachers raises next year. I mean, I know it's a priority and we want to, but we don't even know. And so it's gonna be hard to support this, and not even just our teachers, all of our staff. I don't think I could vote to approve a raise for myself if I thought there was any chance that we weren't giving raises to anyone in our, every.
Well, like I said, I'm gonna put it out there and I'll probably put it out there every year. The bottom line is I have spent when I taught in Oklahoma, that was different. But in South Carolina, we've always been minimal, and you're the last one that they basically think of. We've gotten better, but we still aren't where we need to be. And as long as we continue to make ourselves a low priority, that's what's gonna happen. I put a lot of service on my car because that's what I chose to do. And whether I'm compensated in the end or not, I'm still gonna do that because that's why I ran. And when I get to the point where I just can't, then I just won't.
And I think the other thing is that if you look at across the state, how it's done, and it is done differently in all districts across the state, and that's a hard part too.
Right.
Because there's no consistency, but we're kind of in the middle.
You actually
Yeah.
have like a good portion that don't even get paid.
Some don't
Yeah.
get paid, some definitely make more,
Yeah.
but we're somewhere in the middle.
And some people may be able to afford not to. I'm a single person. So whatever compensation comes to me, that's on me. Whatever expenses I incur, that's on me. If you have a partner, that's different. So
And you're
I
right,
don't
and I
think you can
agree.
balance it. So then you're saying technically a single person may not necessarily consider this as something that they can do. I don't think that should
I
be.
think it's an issue with all elected offices, even for some of the ones that pay more. Like if you look at the legislative delegation, people think they're paid so much, but the amount of money they spend on hotels to be away from their family, to be driving to Columbia consistently. And I'm like, I understand I come from very low income initially. We worked our way up, but I'm still by all means not like rolling in dough, for lack of a better term. But I also share the sentiments with Ashley and something that I've consistently said. And while I empathize, understand, and see that, I can't, I will never vote to give myself a raise. To me, I can't wrap my brain around that. I can't say I am worthy and vote to give it to myself. It's weird that we would even have to be in the position to do that. I don't know. And then the other part is, again, to Ashley's point, when we're struggling every year trying to figure out, are we going to be able to meet the teacher salary increases? And then we think about all the support staff who those are unfunded mandates. If they're gonna get, a pay increase, that's all gonna have to come out of the general fund, most likely unfunded by the state. And so, I mean, there's no way I could support it. There's absolutely no way I could. And I hate that there aren't more board members here because I don't want to constantly bring this to committee and not pass it out of committee for the board to fully vote on. I have no idea where the other board members stand on like this issue. So that's where I'm.
Well, I know we have one other, but I'm not gonna speak for that person.
Yeah,
But at the same time, and I heard what you're saying, but as I said before, town council didn't have a problem with giving them, even though we didn't have the money. County council didn't have a problem with doubling their salary, even though we don't have the money. So why is it when it comes to the actual educators, I have an issue with that?
I think for me, I can't speak for why other people do what they do and their motives and their justification. And they're gonna have to answer to their constituents and the people and ultimately themselves and God at the end of the day when they make those decisions. I struggle to, regardless, it's like, it's not saying that it's a wrong, but two wrongs don't make it right. I think if you're struggling financially to give your people what they deserve, you signed up to first and foremost represent your people. And this is my, like my view of how I feel. I first and foremost, like, took this role to make sure that the staff and the people I represent have adequate compensation and are taken care of. And so like, it's kind of like, I'm last on that list. And if other people and other entities decide the opposite, I can't control that. I always say I don't let other people's actions dictate my character. And so unfortunately, they're going to have to answer to what they do, but I have to, at the end of the day, answer to what I decide. And I, in good conscience, will not pass this out of committee unless there are other board members that show up to this meeting. And we have at least more than one person that says, yes, this is something we'd like to advance to the full board, not because I don't empathize or understand or see what you're saying. It's because it wouldn't make sense for me as a committee chair.
Well, sure.
If people aren't even motivated to come to this meeting and advocate for it, to then move that forward. So.
Okay, but I will also throw this out. I don't feel guilty bringing it up, advocating for myself or for others that may come. The
Right.
Bible says that a workman is worthy of his hire. So therefore, you are to compensate folks based on the work that they're doing. And when I ran for the board, wasn't even thinking about money. So, but now when I look back, my 30-something years in education, those that are out there on the field, those are the ones that basically don't get compensated. And I found out as long as you don't bring it up, they're happy to just move right on.
I commend you for always bringing it up, and I don't.
And I'm
think there's
going
anything
to.
Wrong with that.
Right, even
No,
if I'm
I-
not on the board, I'm
I-
gonna bring it up.
I-
I will still bring it up because I love my field that I chose to work in. And I want people to feel as though they're valued. And one of the ways you show your value of them is how you compensate them. That's one way. It's not the only way, but it is one way. And so I assume that those other folks that are getting their raises, they're okay with it, even if they're not doing their job. And I'm gonna leave it at that.
Well, I agree. I do not think that you should feel guilty for bringing it up, and I
I
appreciate
don't.
how hard you work, and I think that you're absolutely right. It is valid that the amount of time that we put in
Mhm.
and
I don't think people
effort,
realize
energy,
that.
it is you're
So-
right.
Some people don't.
I think two things can be true at the same time. I
Yeah.
think you have very valid points, but I also understand and the situation we're in as a district, unfortunately. And that's just,
Is this something that, we're going through the budget process again, we axe things out all the time about what we put on there. I mean, if this is something the board wants to put on there, we could put it in the budget process, what that looks like. If not,
it
again,
has to be updated in policy in order to go to the budget process. And my thought was if enough board members did feel like they felt like it needed to be advanced, they're going to show up and advocate for that and support that. I stand behind every year. I won't support it. As long as I'm a board member, I will never vote to give myself a raise. And that's just my personal opinion. I stand behind that and I'm not going to change on that. But I also understand and empathize with why others feel differently, so.
Well, and my reasons are more about our inability to
Well,
pay
that's
our
it.
staff to confidently give them raises. Because I don't disagree with you. I'm not saying we don't deserve a raise. I'm saying that not even knowing whether or not we can give staff raises this year to all of our staff makes me, that's my
And
hesitancy.
see, that's my
That's my
frustration
concern.
as well.
Yes,
The
and it
bottom
is
line is,
frustrating.
every year,
So,
we want them to do the very best job, and we continue to be one of the best in the state. But the powers that be doesn't seem to feel as though it's that important, but to maintain and also make them feel appreciated. So definitely, I don't want to be compensated and they're not being compensated. But at the same time, my whole thing is, everybody has to decide what they wanted. Another thing I did put out there before, people said they didn't want if you don't want your raise, I recommend you give it to the board, and with the foundation,
Yeah.
education foundation, not just leave it in the budget, because the education foundation do specific things that we cannot do through the board, through the regular payment plan. But if you are able to give it to them, they in turn can help send folks to conferences and, just find out what else is going on outside of DD2. Because I learned a lot with AI and all those meetings we went to, that was powerful to me. And I remember the days when we used to be able to go to some of those meetings. And so I want them to be able to go to those. So if you don't want your increase, that's anybody, including you, our director over here. I'm just messing with you. I mean, just donate it to the board, to the foundation, education foundation, anybody. Dr. Wilson? Just let me know and I'll tell them to come
I will
and
say
pick up your check.
There
But
is
anyway,
kind of like a caveat to this and this is, I think, at the discretion of the superintendent, I'm not sure. But if we're ever in a position where we're able to give like a Christmas bonus or something, I do believe it is possible that when it goes to all staff, we are technically staff, so you could qualify for that bonus. So that's always an option. If we're doing so good and we're giving bonuses out, I mean, maybe that's, a way to say thank you to your board for the sacrifice they make. I don't know,
well, the only reason I brought it is I was told that leadership the only one can give us a raise would be the board itself,
Yeah.
the only
That
one.
is
So
correct.
that's
It's
why
correct.
I
You're right.
continuously bring it to you.
You're right.
And, but anyway, thank you for at least listening. And I get a little passionate and sometimes I don't express myself as clearly as I want to. But the bottom line is,
I think you did great and I appreciate you and thank you for your.
I'm passionate about what I believe. But anyway, we're
Well,
good.
we will leave
We can
this
move on.
and not pass this out of committee.
Great, that's all for this evening.
All right, and do we have any more public comment today? All right, all right. We will adjourn. Thank you.